What up, Wizards? It's Dev and Igby. We're from the place, and today I had a plan, man. I jumped out of bed ready to rank every single Commander Precon of 2025. Can't wait to do that video, but when I sat down to do it, they had dumped a bunch of new cards on us out of nowhere. So that's exciting, right? Got some new cards for a set everyone's anticipating. Let's look at some Lorwyn. It's not Lorwyn. It's not. Well, it's Strixhaven. We still haven't seen a single card from that set. It's Marvel Superheroes. That set comes out in June. That set is 6.5 months away. Look, I understand that the reason that they do this is because they have to show off cards to stores and other distributors and vendors early, because then that spurs on orders ahead of time and blah, blah, blah. So if they're going to give those cards to stores, they know they're going to leak them. So we might as well get the cards at the same time as all the stores see them. I understand the reasoning, but I'll remind you that even though that is the case, we still haven't seen a single card from Strixhaven. I'd really like to see some stuff from that set. But one way or the other, we did get 18 Marvel Superheroes cards dropped on our heads today. And some of these do look pretty cool, despite the fact that it does kind of seem like Spider-Man 2 Electric Boogaloo. But, you know, that remains to be seen. I think the set will hopefully be made with a little bit more tender love and care than Spider-Man was. But with all that said, we got a lot to look at today, and I've just been babbling on. So let's go ahead and get to it. Now, we got to start somewhere, and I think the best place to begin is with some of the villain synergies that we saw today, which also gives us a chance to preview a new card subtype. Pretty cool. But let's start with Thunderbolt's Conspiracy, as well as Doom Reigns Supreme here. Now, Conspiracy is 4 mana, 3 and a black for an enchantment with flash. Whenever a villain you control dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a finality counter on it. That creature is a hero in addition to its other types. Cool flavor there, I guess. But yeah, we've seen effects like this a good number of times before, from Luminous Broodmoth to Nightmare Shepherd and a few others, right? Beifong's Bounty Hunters is in standard right now. Just came out in the last set. It's part of like a weird infinite combo deck. It's kind of cool. But this has flash, which you don't often see. I imagine you can use this to save like one of your dudes that's being targeted by a removal spell in that moment, and then just kind of have it on the table whenever other villains die from that point on. You can obviously respond to sweepers like Deadly Cover Up with it, and that might be a pretty cool way to do things too. But altogether, I'm just, again, not sure how good the villain synergies are going to be. But that said, we got villain stuff in Spider-Man. We're getting villain stuff in this set. So maybe once this set comes out, it'll really pull the whole villain room together and we can make a real deck out of these dudes. But I guess if you are building a villain's deck, then once they come back from the graveyard, you lose your any villain synergy you would have at that point. If you have a card that says all villains get +1/+1, well, they don't anymore, right? So I don't know. I don't think it's going to screw too much up, and I don't think it's going to be too powerful in standard either. It's just a fun bit of villain synergy. But we did get another villain-centric card, and this one's a little bit more interesting. This is Doom Reigns Supreme, 1 and a black for an enchantment, which is also a plan. Again, new card subtype here. Whenever a villain you control enters, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Put a plan counter on this enchantment. When the 5th plan counter is put on this enchantment, sacrifice it. When you do, target opponent exiles the top 5 cards of their library. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the exiled cards without paying their mana cost. So that's pretty cute, especially if you can find a way to get counters on it that don't necessarily involve playing villains. You know, if you can proliferate it somehow or something like that. That might be cute. But if all it really takes is 5 villains, you can maybe get there. It's entirely possible. I don't think this is too powerful right now. A card I could probably compare this to that we have access to in standard is Tiny Bones Joins Up. That does a damage and a drain, really, whenever we play a legendary creature. It costs 50% of what this does and forces a discard when it comes into play, and even mills the opponent incidentally, and you if you needed to. And that card does see some play, but mostly in like Pixie and Fear of Isolation decks and whatnot, as a replacement for Hopeless Nightmare since it got banned. So I don't know if paying twice as much for an effect like that doesn't even get a card out of the opponent's hand is going to be very good. And skipping your turn 2 when you could be playing a decent 2-drop villain also seems kind of bad, but you have to get it down as early as possible to actually fulfill the condition on it reliably. So, and even if you can fill the condition on it reliably, it doesn't happen until like turn 6. So I'm just not like too convinced this card is good, but it is cool. And I think there's a big difference between those two things. I respect a cool card. And, you know, even when it comes to Commander, I might try to think about how to put it together. But at the same time, We're getting commander decks for this set, right? I should point that out. We're getting commander decks for the set. Maybe one of them would be villain-centric, and this might be really good in that deck. But either way, in Standard, I'm just not seeing it, although I do like the design. Another card I could probably say the same thing about is Baron Helmet Zemo. This is 3 mana, all of it black, for a 3/3 legendary human noble villain. Whenever you cast a black spell from your hand, Baron Helmet Zemo connives. You can also boast, exile any number of black cards from your graveyard with 15 or more black mana symbols among their mana cost, and copy the exiled cards. You may cast up to 3 of the copies without paying their mana cost. You can only activate if this creature attacked this turn, and only once each turn, in case you needed a reminder. Little refresher about the boast ability. I do think boast is a cool ability for a superhero set. That makes an awful lot of sense. But when you remember this is a boast ability, it's nowhere near as good. And when you really do the math on it, it starts to get kind of iffy as well. You know, you have to actually, have 15 freaking black pips in your yard, which is so much easier or so much harder than it sounds, man. Like, I will say that this isn't necessarily legendary proof, but if you mill yourself and extra copies of the Baron end up in your yard, well, that's 3 black pips towards the fulfillment of this condition. So that's kind of cool, but he does still have to survive attacks. He has to survive attacks, especially late in the game, because I assume it's going to be pretty late when you actually put together 15 black mana symbols in your graveyard. You have to have on average probably like 8 cards in your yard. All of them cards with black mana symbols, not counting like lands you ended up milling. You have to have like at least 8 cards, I would imagine, to really get this to pop off. And I'm just not sure it's ever going to actually happen. So this is another one where the design looks really cool, and you might get like the big eyes about it. You might go, oh, okay. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of really difficult to make this actually work. The one positive thing I will say about this guy is probably the piece that people aren't necessarily missing. They're just not prioritizing very much. That first line of text is actually pretty good. Cast a black spell from your hand and he might get a little bit larger. You'll definitely get farther into your deck and maybe pitch something into your yard, which will help out his boast ability when it finally happens. And maybe when you finally go to attack with him late in the game to get his boast ability, he'd be like a 9/9. It could happen if he's got enough counters. So I don't know. Maybe he's better than he looks, but I don't think so, definitionally. Up next, we'll look at a 5-color mono black commander. You heard me. This is Super-Skrull over here. A cool character for sure. This is 4 mana, 1 and triple black for a 4/5 legendary Skrull shapeshifter villain with flying. If you pay 2 and a white, you create a 0/4 colorless wall creature token with Defender. If you pay 3 and a green, Super-Skrull gets +4/+4 until end of turn. You pay 4 and a red, and Skrull deals 4 damage to a creature. If you pay 5 and a blue, target player draws 4 cards. Those are very expensive abilities. Like, this is not a Kenrith, but it is worth noting that this doesn't tap for its abilities. I guess that's kind of cool. You can flood the board with 0/4s to block for you relatively cheaply. It is a mana sink if nothing else, and I kind of like those. It can blow up creatures. I really like the draw 4 cards mode. That's sick. This kind of might go hard with an Agatha Soul Cauldron or something, and it is in the standard playable portion of the set, so I guess keep that in mind. I don't know. There's cool things about the card, but at the end of the day, I think it's a little bit brutal. I really do. I think if you're playing a 5-color commander, you can probably do way better than this, right? But maybe if you're trying to play like 5-color mono black, there's not a lot of ways to do that. Skrull might be one of the cooler ways to do it, but at the end of the day, I'm just not like super convinced this goes much of anywhere, but it's another card I kind of like the design on, if nothing else. Now, I promise that there are cards we saw today that I think are objectively good and I really like, but that said, let's move on to Dr. Doom. I kind of think they did our boy dirty, and I don't think there's going to be too many more versions of this guy, considering this one is mythic. And by the way, yes, that set symbol is not great, but it's supposed to be a comic book. Do you see how it is a little not great, though. But Dr. Doom, on the other hand, he could be better than I think he is, but he is a 6 mana 3/3. You're paying 4 and double black for a 3/3 legendary human scientist villain. When he enters, you get 2 3/3 colorless robot villain artifact creature tokens named Doombot. So you get 9 total power across 3 guys. As long as you control an artifact creature or a plan, Dr. Doom has indestructible. So, hey, he has indestructible the moment he comes into play. At the beginning of your end step, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Now, honestly, I spoke too soon there. He doesn't have it as soon as he comes into play, because when he comes into play, you'll put the ability on the stack that makes the 2 guys, and he doesn't have indestructible during that moment. So do keep that in mind. But in any case, this is kind of a Phyrexian arena with indestructible that puts 9 total power on the table. I mean, it's fine, right? Draws you the card the turn it comes into play too, so that's kind of cool. There are nice things about this dude, but he costs 6 mana, man. And his name's not even in all caps, right? I mean, please remember, all caps when you spell the man's name, and they didn't do that here, but maybe there will be one where his name's in all caps. That'll be the better one. But ultimately, I don't think they did our dude very well here. I do like that he's a decent blink target, if nothing else. He kind of reminds me of Grave Titan, but only because he puts a couple of dudes into play when he comes into play. That's the only real reason. And because he's 6 mana, there are reasons he reminds me of Grave Titan, but either way, I don't think that he is Grave Titan. An extra card every turn is pretty sick, especially on a ostensibly indestructible guy. I kind of like. And, you know, I just said that maybe you'll have to wait for the 2 guys to the first ability to resolve for him to actually be indestructible. But man, it's like turn 4, 5, 6. By the time you actually get the guy done, you probably have another artifact on the table. He should be indestructible the moment he resolves. So just throwing that out there. This could, again, be better than I think, but right now in Standard, we got like the Rise of Sozin to spend 6 mana on. We got Liliana Dreadhorde General to spend 6 mana on. I don't think this is necessarily better than either one of those. So again, kind of did my dude dirty slightly, but I'm hoping that he finds a place. But up next, let's look at Captain America Super Soldier. Sorry about the resolution on this card. I can't do anything about it. There's nothing but fuzzy versions of this card on the internet right now. 3 mana, 1 and double white for a 3/2 legendary human soldier hero with first strike that enters with a shield counter on it. As long as Captain America has that shield counter, you and other heroes you control have hexproof. That's pretty okay. Better than any of the villain synergy that we've seen so far today, for sure. We haven't really seen too much hero synergy, even in Spider-Man, right? But hopefully we get a bunch of it in this set. And I'm not sure that the heroes deck is going to be great, but I do like a semi-indestructible 3 mana, 3 power first strike guy. And as long as he's still got the indestructible, then suddenly nothing else is getting targeted. That's okay. Kind of reminds me of like a Sigarda, but also gives you hexproof. Like, come on, okay. We're kind of getting somewhere here. Kind of a must play in the Heroes deck, but is the Heroes deck actually good? I'm not sure. I'm also not sure how Captain America reads in other countries. You know, like if you buy a pack of Magic the Gathering literally anywhere outside of the United States and you crack open a Captain America, how you feel about that? I'm not sure. In any case, the actual text box on the card for the rate you're paying for it is almost there. It's so close to there, but I'm not sure this card should have been mythic. So next, let's look at a card that I'm really interested in, but I'm just not sure is quite good. Can we call it good? This is the Sentry Golden Guardian. This is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 5/5 legendary human hero with flying and vigilance and indestructible. When the Sentry enters, target opponent creates the Void, a legendary 5/5 black horror villain creature token with flying, indestructible, and the Void attacks each combat if able. So it's interesting that the Sentry with vigilance can swing into the Void and still block it next turn. I kind of think that's cool, right? It just like absorbs the block and who cares? It's got they both have indestructible to bounce off of each other. But where this really gets good is that if you just have like an Into the Flood Maw or something, just bounce the token you gave him. Who cares? If you have like an Aang's Iceberg or some other like exile effect, just exile the token. Who cares? And now you have a 4 mana 5/5 flying vigilance indestructible. It's like a flying vigilant. It's like a Juzam Jin that doesn't deal damage to you every turn and has 3 extremely good keyword abilities. That is kind of all right if you can somehow blank the token. The problem is they have all the same avenues open to them. They can exile your Sentry and keep their token. They can bounce your Sentry, keep their token, you know. So I'm just not too sure how good this actually is or what it sees play in. It's 4 mana, so is it better than Biza in mono white or white X decks? Is it better than Overlord of the Mistmoors? The answer to both those questions is kind of a giant no, just massive, loud no. You know, so I'm not sure this finds a place, but I really like the design on this. The flavor is pretty good. And for what it's worth, I do think there's plenty of ways to offset the fact that you give them a token and just blow right past that without having to care. So maybe it's cooler than it looks, but again, it's got a lot of competition at this mana rate. There, that's mana rate. I should have said casting cost and kept it moving. But anyway, let's do exactly that. Let's keep it moving. And look at Atom. It's a Merfolk guy. This is the Atlantean Warlord here. So this is 4 mana for a 3/4 legendary Merfolk warrior villain. Other Merfolk you control get +1/+1. And whenever one or more Merfolk you control attack or player, draw a card. He's riding a shark. That's awesome. So this is the only uncommon we got to see today. And I ended up putting it in order above a lot of the rares and mythics. I'm not sure, again, like how important this actually is, especially considering it's just another creature type matters kind of guy. And a rant that I want to go on pretty hard here is that we're about to go to Lorwyn. And Lorwyn has Merfolk in it. It's got Sig and a bunch of other Merfolk, the Regery or whatever, are in Lorwyn. Merfolk are a huge part of Lorwyn. And yet, apparently, we're going to have to wait like 4 months after Lorwyn comes out to get Merfolk payoffs. Like, maybe there will be some in Lorwyn, but these won't be, you know? That's kind of lame. I understand breadcrumbing, you know? I understand, like, oh, this for this deck is in this set. And then this card for the same deck is in the next set, and the next set, and the next set. Eventually, the deck is put together. But, you know, I kind of want to play Merfolk when the Merfolk set comes out, dog. Why do I have to wait like 4 months to get the Merfolk stuff? This is a pretty good Merfolk card. You don't have to deal combat damage. You just get an extra card every turn for attacking. And obviously an Anthem effect is good, but not for 4 mana. You pay 2 mana for an Anthem effect. You're happy with that. But when it's also got a card draw effect on it, I think you'll be happy to play some number of this card if you do build Merfolk. But we got a much better Merfolk card than this. And that is for some reason, Mythic. It doesn't have to be Mythic, but it's Mythic. I don't... Stop doing that. We got Namor the Submariner. Or Namor? Is this like an Aquaman thing? Because I don't know this guy. I don't know this guy at all. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for a star 4 legendary mutant Merfolk villain with flying. Namor's power is equal to the number of Merfolk you control. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with 1 or more blue mana symbols in its mana cost, create that many 1/1 blue Merfolk creature tokens, kiddo. So that's crazy. So crazy. Doesn't even have to be a Merfolk payoff. It really doesn't. Like, this could just be in your deck. And you're casting blue spells. Like, I counter your spell with a No More Lies. And I get, you know, a Merfolk. I counter your spell with a 3 steps ahead and I get 2 Merfolk. I'm pretty sure it works that way. Don't quote me. Do I have to pay extra blue mana for 3 steps ahead? I think I do. But either way, you know, if I should have said cancel. If I cast cancel, you know, I get two guys. That's pretty sick. Once the guy's on the table, you're actually kind of getting a lot of 1/1s very quickly. There's no once per turn on this. So if you just go opt, sleight of hand, you get 3 guys. Storm Chaser's Talent, opt, 2 guys. That seems pretty crazy too. So again, he doesn't even have to be in Merfolk decks. This is like our first, I think, pretty good card of the day. We'll see if he's good enough for standard, because 3 mana is kind of a lot, even for an effect like this. But as far as commander goes, I think I want to make this dude my commander. And even if he's not your commander, again, he goes in your Merfolk deck in the 99. And I think that depending on how many blue pips, like if you're some sort of blue devotion deck or something, you just always play this guy. Guaranteed. You always play this guy in the 99 somewhere, because there are spells out there he just gives you like 4 1/1s off of. And that's insane. So this dude's got a lot of work ahead of him, is all I'm saying. He's the first card of the day that I really felt excited to present. But again, why is he mythic? I really feel like they could have gotten away with just giving this guy normal rare status and it would have been fine. But speaking of mythics, let's look at Bruce Banner. Makes sense that he's a mythic because everyone knows who he is. This is a single blue mana for a 1/1 legendary human scientist hero. You can pay double X and tap him and draw X cards, activate only as a sorcery. If you pay 2 double red, double green, transform Bruce at sorcery speed, and you get the Incredible Hulk. But just like the Spider-Man legends, you can just play the Incredible Hulk out of your hand for 6 mana. You don't have to play Bruce and then transform him first. If you have 6 mana and the Hulk's in your hand, go ahead and throw him down, kid. But this is an 8/8 legendary Gamma Berserker hero with reach and trample and enrage. Whenever the Incredible Hulk is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on him. If he's attacking, untap him, and there's an additional combat phase after this phase, and obviously the flavor text is exactly what you would expect it to be. I love that they put the enrage ability on the Hulk. That just makes sense. Sometimes Magic has perfect language in terms of its mechanics to express what a card should do, right? And I think that this is one of those cases, so good job with that. Hulk is a much more interesting card than Bruce. Now, I do kind of like the idea of just being able to tap Bruce and draw a bunch of cards. That seems cool. Sucks that it's only sorcery speed, but you know, I got 4 mana. I can draw 2 with Bruce if I got nothing better to do. That's better than it seems, I think, depending on what you're doing. Pretty good mana sink. But when it comes to the Hulk, man, the Hulk, though, a little bit better, man. An 8/8 reach trample is good enough right there. And if they ever deign to block him, then suddenly, you know, you Anzrag. It's basically Anzrag, the Quake Mole, but on a 6 mana package. So just really, really cool Magic card here. I think both in Commander and potentially even in Teamer standard decks. You know, this could be a one-of or something like that. So there's a lot that I like about this card too. I don't know if it's quite as good as some of the stuff we're about to look at, but I do think that it has a path to victory is all I'm going to say. There are definitely ways that this card could end up being pretty busted. But next, let's move on to a card that I think some people might think is like unassuming, but For me, this is right outside of the top 3 cards of the day, man. This is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. 3 mana, 1, a green, and a blue for a 2/2 legendary human dinosaur hero. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, until end of turn, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur's base power and toughness becomes 6/6 and they gain trample. Whenever an artifact you control enters, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Kind of a boo, but still pretty easy to get an extra card to return. And note that because she has the second ability, you don't have to go out of your way to like play a bunch of card draw spells in your deck. You could, right? You just play ops and whatever. But you could also get there by just casting an artifact and getting it on the table. You don't even have to cast an artifact. Cast a creature that gives you a treasure token when it comes into play. And then bing bong, you got a 3 mana 6/6 trample. So that could be pretty good on turn 4, right? I think that a lot of green-blue decks are going to be trying to cast Ouroboros on turn 4, so we'll see if this is really as good as I want it to be. But, you're casting this as early as turn 2 in Standard right now, and on turn 3 you can very easily get an artifact into play in any number of ways. And then, again, you're swinging with a 6/6 trample that also draws you extra cards, right? We have an extremely above-rate creature that easily draws an extra card every turn. How is that not extremely noteworthy? Is Simic that powerful? I don't know, man. I think we might be looking at another one of those this mana cost monsters. It's like we saw Nadu at this mana cost. We saw Oko at this mana cost. We saw Euro at this mana cost. These are all cards that are famously banned. And I'm not sure that Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is at the same power level, but I know it's a lot better than whatever it was, the plant cat island guy that's in Avatar. That guy's okay, but I can't even remember the name of him, which really tells you a lot, right? This thing looks a lot more dangerous than that, and it's a dinosaur, which can be a relevant creature type, even in Standard. So, I don't know. I think there's just a lot of really cool stuff about this. Anytime you see a creature that's this potentially above rate, and also is, I'm also a Phyrexian Arena, it seems pretty good, man. But let's get on to that aforementioned top 3 of the day, and 2 of them are actually sagas, starting with The Coming of Galactus. This is 5 mana, 2 double black and a green for a saga. On Chapter 1, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. On Chapters 2 and 3, each opponent loses 2 life, and on Chapter 4, you get to create Galactus, a legendary 16/16 Black Elder alien creature token with flying, trample, and whenever Galactus attacks, destroy target land. So this does not have any kind of indestructibility or hexproof or anything. It's just a 16/16 that dies to not literally Doomblade, but you get what I'm saying here. It just dies to most removal that anyone's going to actually be playing. That's non-red in Standard. That said, it's going to be tough for Is It Lessons or any deck playing red removal to really deal with this dude apart from bouncing it. But they can't just bounce. They can just play Boomerang Basics on it. It's gone for a single mana. So I don't know how good this is going to actually end up being, but I will say that I like enchantments for a number of reasons in Standard right now, not only because there's some enchantment synergy that'll allow you to draw a card when it comes into play, stuff like that. But there's also Rydia. Rydia is really good with sagas in general, and I like Rydia especially with sagas that have a removal mode on them, Death of Gwen Stacy seems pretty bad. It's really good with Rydia. And Coming of Galactus could be as well, just playing it out of your graveyard. If they do kill your Galactus, when you finally get it, you can just use Rydia to replay this out of your graveyard. Bing bang, pretty easy. And you can blow something else up. Blowing up a non-land permanent, it's not just blowing up a creature. Blowing up a non-land permanent on enters is really good. Kind of reminds me a bit of Binding the Old Gods, which is a really played card back in its Standard. So again, a lot of things that I really like about this card. It might be a smidge too much to cast, and the Galactus might be really weirdly vulnerable once it actually comes down, but something that blows up their best thing and eventually gives you a guy that ends the game in 1 bite, because it's already done 4 damage to your opponent. So 16/16 should theoretically finish the job. That all seems good. This card is mythic again, by the way. Apparently this set is comprised of nothing but mythics. But still, this seems like a really, really good card. And I think it's going to be one that's, even though it has freaking Galactus on it, is a little bit under some players' radar. Maybe people don't take it seriously enough. I can understand why for the 5 mana cost. But at the same time, I think that definitely does have a chance in Standard. But speaking of 5-mana sagas with a chance in standard, let's look at World War Hulk here. This is 5 mana, 3 and double green. For a saga where on chapter 1, the next red or green creature spell you cast this turn can be cast without paying its mana cost. On chapter 2, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. And on chapter 3, you choose a creature you control until end of turn, double its power and toughness. And it gains trample, so that really should finish the game, depending on what you ended up playing, right? I'm not sure this is better than like a Smuggler's Surprise, but it is 1 mana cheaper than a Smuggler's Surprise. And just like the last card we looked at, it's an enchantment. You might get all kinds of value off the fact this is an enchantment or just a permanent in the first place. You know, this can be bargained away. This can be reanimated from your graveyard in a number of ways. It's not just Rydia. There's things in standard right now that like reanimate enchantments and whatnot. So I don't know. There's pretty cool card, all things considered. You know, it's got some tricks in standard right now, like little dumb stuff like Calamity, you know, throw a Calamity down or whatever, all the way to extremely broken stuff like Crater Hoof Behemoth, which shouldn't be too hard, you know. I think that along with Badger Mole Cub, World War Hulk costs, you know, you can get this down on like turn 3 very, very easily in Cub standard. And even before Cub came out, there's ways to get this down on turn 3. 5 mana on 3 is the new normal in some ways, and I think that being able to cast basically whatever you want on 3 is pretty good. And do note that it's a cast trigger. So like, you know, Geological Appraiser and stuff that you have to cast to get the ETB trigger, this works with that because you get the cast on it. So I don't know. All things considered, I think it's actually a pretty sweet little card, man. But the final standard legal card I want to look at today is pretty wild. It's Quicksilver Brash Blur, a single red mana for a 1/1 legendary mutant hero. If Quicksilver's in your opening hand, you may begin the game with him on the battlefield. This has haste. It also has power up, kind of a form of exhaust in some ways. You can pay 4 into red and put a +1/+1 counter and a double strike counter on Quicksilver. Activate each power up ability only once. Reduce the cost by his mana cost if he entered this turn. So if he entered this turn, then he cost a total of 5 mana, I believe it is, to attack with, you know, a 2/2 double strike the turn he comes down. That's not too bad. So this guy's either crazy or totally fine, and I'm leaning on the side of crazy. I mean, it's just a free Raging Goblin. I guess it's got like an extra ability that like maybe you'll get to later in the game or something, but for the most part, I think it's just free Raging Goblin. And that is much better than it seems, especially considering if you have another 1-drop to play alongside it. Well, no. Suddenly, you got 2 guys on the table on turn 1, which is so much better than it seems. You know, some cards will pay you off for just having a good number of creatures on the table. Other cards will pay you off for having creatures on the table at all. So let's say your opponent has 1 removal spell on turn 1, like a stab or a tragic trajectory or something. Well, if you got 2 1-drops, you're still in the clear and can keep attacking and using pump spells. That's another thing about this card, is that if you get this and a 1-drop on turn 1, then maybe your opponent can play a blocker for one of them, but not the other one. So if you've got pump spells in your hand, this technically goes really well alongside them and another 1-drop. All I'm saying is getting more creatures on turn 1 means that you're much more likely to get through for combat damage on subsequent turns or have a creature go unblocked. And in some mono red builds, all you need is for one guy to go block to go completely ham and turkey and gravy. Just having another 1-drop Legend's good for like Mox Amber decks. Are those a thing anywhere? Commander. Anyway, there's a lot to be said about a free guy. The dude is free. He's like a Mimnite. Guy is completely free on turn 1 of the game, and that's kind of amazing. I saw a couple people in chat when they revealed this, like, it's a leyline creature. It's like, there's been more stuff than just leylines you can play on turn 1 for free, but this is the first creature that I can remember having this kind of text on it. And I actually think that at the end of the day, it's going to be supremely impactful. You know, there is some opportunity cost. You have to actually take up slots in your deck to play this card, but I don't think that's going to be too much of a concern. I think a free 1-drop creature is going to be good in a lot of formats, actually, and probably even better the farther back you go. So, you know, I called it a Raging Goblin back there, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be way more. Now, that's all for the standard legal stuff from today, but meanwhile, we got to see some stuff from a Commander deck, too. It looks like there's going to be multiple Commander decks for the Marvel Superheroes product, and that might go off pretty nicely. But again, we got to see 4 cards from the Fantastic Four deck. Can you guess which 4 cards we got to see from the Fantastic Four deck? Let's take a look at all of these and kind of have some fun goofing and ranking them. Now, I'll start with the Invisible Woman here, who I think is honestly pretty good, though. This is 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/3 legendary human hero. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast a non-creature spell this turn, you get a 0/3 colorless wall creature token with Defender and Reach. Whenever you attack, you may pay red, green, white, blue. Get used to that. Get used to that. You may pay red, green, white, blue when you attack. When you do, a creature you control really any creature, gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each creature you control and cannot be blocked this turn. So you can give a creature quite the bonus and unblockability with this 4 mana, activated here. Really a triggered ability, actually. But I'm not sure how good that's going to end up being. I'm just not too sure. I don't like that you're only getting 1 wall a turn, guaranteed per turn cycle, only 1 wall. And that's only if you cast a non-creature spell. There's going to be turns where your hand is dry. You can't even do that. So, again, I'm not sure that this is the most powerful of the cards we saw from the Fantastic Four deck, but I do think in some ways it has one of the better, abilities on it. So that's kind of cool. But there's other stuff. We got to see the Human Torch if you want to play some aggro. This is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 3/2 legendary human hero. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast a non-creature spell this turn, Human Torch gains flying and double strike and haste until end of turn. Whenever Human Torch attacks, you may pay red, green, white, blue. Look at that. If you do, until end of turn, whenever he deals combat damage to an opponent, he deals that much damage to each other opponent. That's kind of cute. So if he has the double strike, you're dealing 6 to everyone. Not actually so bad in Commander. That adds up very fast, especially if you can finagle a way of like casting a non-creature and getting him into play on the same turn. Surprise swing. Let's go. So I don't know. This is all right. I'm not sure how much I love like aggro-y stuff like this in Commander, but this can, admittedly do a lot of damage like relatively quickly. So we'll move on though to The Thing. This is where we start getting a little bit better, I think. 6 mana, 5 and a green for a 5/5 legendary human hero with trample. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, put 4 +1/+1 counters on the Thing. Pretty crazy. Whenever the Thing attacks, you may pay red, green, white, blue. When you do, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents that you control. Gross. Like that could get very out of hand. It doesn't just have to be +1/+1 counters at all. It could also be loyalty counters and whatnot. So I think that's kind of cute. But there's a lot of different kind of counters that you can affect with this. Charge counters and other counters that artifacts get. Unique counters that some cards might get. You can double with this. So I think it's good. I actually think it's also like much safer to attack with this than the last couple of creatures, but it has to attack. I'm pretty sure the last couple of cards here are just whenever you attack. No, actually I'm wrong. Invisible Woman is whenever you attack. Human Torch also has to attack. The Thing has to attack. But shouldn't be too hard to attack with it, considering it can be a 9/9 the first time it attacks. So should be relatively safe, And if you pay the mana, it can become huge, just absolutely gratuitously enormous. So I think that old Ben over here is pretty all right, depending on what you're doing, actually. So I guess the idea with the Fantastic Four deck is you can switch any of the commanders out and make them your face, like commander, your actual commander. And I might consider doing that with the Thing, but the only one we haven't looked at is Mr. Fantastic, who has a completely breakable ability. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/4 legendary human scientist hero with vigilance and reach. Do you get the reach? Because he can just stretch. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast a non-creature spell this turn, draw a card. So that's not as heavy as some of the other abilities we've seen like that, but get a load of this. For a red, a green, a white, and a blue, and a tap, you don't have to wait to attack or attack with him or anything. Just pay the mana and tap him. Copy target triggered ability you control twice. You may choose new targets for the copy. Twice. Like Rings of Brightheart or something like that, but you get to copy the thing twice. You copy it twice. That's insanity, man. 4 mana might be a little bit much. And if you want to copy any of his teammates' abilities, you effectively have to have like 8 mana. It's kind of a lot, but I don't think that's actually too much to ask at the end of a game of Commander. And this should end a game of Commander if you copy the right thing 2 times. So again, I think there's probably plenty of ways to go infinite with this, if I had to guess. I don't know any off the top of my head, but I imagine if you get 3 of the same activated ability, or triggered ability, you could probably use one of them to like untap Mr. Fantastic and keep going. So again, there's got to be some kind of string with this, but either way, there should be plenty of situations where just copying a crazy triggered ability twice just ends the game outright. In a lot of situations, you can target one opponent with one of them, and then the other 2 opponents with the other 2 that you target, that you copy. So, yeah, I think Mr. Fantastic is relatively strong. Definitely not the strongest commander I've ever seen or anything, but this is obviously a very gameable ability. But now that is truly Itsky Lewitsky for the day, everybody. That is all the Marvel superhero stuff we'll see for the next few months. So, there was some good stuff in this batch, but maybe the best thing about it is that we won't have to talk about it for another few months, another half a year or so. So that said, I don't want to be too cynical about the Marvel superhero set. There was some good stuff in here. And I think that there's a good chance it won't just be Spider-Man 2, because again, I think that they designed this one a little bit differently. Spider-Man, they had to switch around what they were doing like twice during production. I don't think they had to do that, at least to the same extent they had to do with Spider-Man when it came to this one. Plus, there's the fact that there won't be like 50 Spider-Man cards. Like, I'm really hoping there's only 1 or 2 iterations of each like hero that they decided to pick. But either way, man, I'm thinking that this set might be a little better than Spider-Man. And so far, some of these cards are giving me some hope. But just let me know how you felt about the stuff from today, and then we'll get back to like Avatar Standard and stuff tomorrow. Anyway, guys, just hit me up in the comments section with the thoughts, emotions, and opinions, and do all the YouTube stuff on your way out. Hit the like button. It's shaped a little bit like this. It looks kind of like a thumb. I think they did that on purpose. Also, you can subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 150K, and we're actually marching right along. You can be part of that. And apart from that, we have a Patreon, too. You want to support this hard work around here? You want to support me ditching what I actually wanted to do today and being a responsible adult and doing the spoiler cards? It's $1 a month is all it takes, man. And you get to pick on what we do around here, for that matter. So get on in there. If you can afford it, I appreciate it. If you can't afford it, I'm just glad that you're here. But in any case, y'all, that is Allski Kowalski. So I will catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.